Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing one of my favorite watches in one of its less common forms. This is the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and this is reference 5015 on the X71 bracelet. The X71 bracelet is a massive and beautifully built piece that adds considerably to the value and the wrist presence. It's a big watch, 45 millimeters in diameter, 15.4 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 50.7 millimeters, but if we add the solid end lengths of the bracelet, it flares out to 56.1 millimeters across the wrist and has a 23 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I'll throw this watch on my wrist, and although I could wear this watch on the strap, I'll let you be the judge of whether this watch is too big for me on the bracelet. Certainly, it pushes right out to the edge of my wrist and on both sides. You can see that well from over the top. My hand and my arm are actually a lot bigger than they look, so this might work better with the rest of my body in view for perspective, but I do think I'm right at the limit of what's possible. If your wrist is smaller than my 16 centimeter circumference, you're going to want to wear this watch on a strap or find a smaller Blancpain 50 Fathoms. That said, it is remarkably solid and better balanced on the bracelet, because if you want to wear it loose, having all that mass of the bracelet and the clasp on the underside is going to prevent the watch from hula hooping or moving around. And surprisingly, it would fit underneath a jacket cuff, not a dress sleeve, but a jacket cuff. Taking a look at the X71, you can see first it's fully integrated with a conforming end link to close the gap to the case. It curves to match the slope of the lugs, but also the curvature of the case. We have satin finished primary and then polished accents. The remarkable countersink of one link into the next means there's very little daylight showing where daylight isn't intended. You do have some gaps between the center links to better vent the wrist, but it is a remarkably solid bracelet with incredibly little play from end to end. We also have removable links fixed by screws, and you can see that on both sides. You can see that there's extra little intermediate link down at this end that makes it possible to size more precisely if you're in between link sizes. Now, the clasp is remarkably deluxe. You can see twin trigger release, double folding. It's a non-sequential close, so either side could close before the other. All removable links are fixed by screws. It is a very tough, redoubtable, and solidly built accessory. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that hex screws and bars are used to fix the bracelet or the strap to the case, and that's an expensive way to do things, but it is the right way to do things. More secure with screws and bars than with spring bars. We have a vintage-inspired, deeply knurled crown that sits amid some rather spare crown guards. We have a 120-click unidirectional rotating dive bezel with a remarkably vocal precise and impressive click. Truly a pleasure. This is the kind of feature that can make or break a dive watch. Sometimes they're indistinct. Sometimes they do 60 click rather than 120. Sometimes there's a gumminess or resistance to them. This watch has it all. This knurling is sharp enough that you'll be able to grip it with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands, which is key. 120 click is more precise than 60. And then we've got this cambered sapphire that sits over the whole bezel, meaning the whole bezel can be loomed with no risk of chipping the lumen. This is a feature that was brought over to the 50 Fathoms in 2003 on the 50th anniversary model. That was only 40 millimeters. This is larger, and it came out in 2007, but this model from 2007 to present has been the definitive 50 Fathoms, and it is remarkably rich. In an era when a lot of brands are using ceramic caps on bezels, this cambered sapphire gives it the appearance of money and expense, and I deeply appreciate it. Also, because it allows the whole bezel to be loomed, the loom shot of this watch is spectacular. You can see how easy it is to locate the bezel pearl and line that up with the minute hand, even in the dark. Now you've got a count up 0 to 60 minute timer. I've always found dive bezels to be more convenient, easier to read, and ultimately cheaper to service than chronographs. So if you don't need a chronograph, this is probably a better solution. We have a dial with a stepped center and then all applique indices with quarter Arabic numerals. The date disc sits between 4 and 5 o'clock, and in good taste, the date disc is the same color as the dial. We have modified hands that are somewhere between syringe and broadsword, and then we have a little counterweighted triangular index seconds hand. The watch does have stop seconds and a quick set date, though you can't see it as this is an older model. It has the same caliber 1315. It's made these series 5015 50 Fathoms so great. Now this earlier one doesn't have the later silicone hairspring, so it has a soft iron inner cage like a Rolex Milgauss to give it anti-magnetic qualities. It's also water resistant down to 300 meters. Of course, the crown is a screw down. The movement is an automatic winder with 3 mainspring barrels and a 5-day power reserve. It beats away at 8 beats per second or 4 hertz. It has the quick set. It has the hacking seconds. It has a free sprung balance for shock tolerance. It is adjusted to the same degree as a chronometer, and these are well known to run plus 0.5, plus 1 seconds per day, and it pivots on 35 joules. The finishing, though you can't see it, is aesthetically impressive and exhaustive. Everything you would expect and more, even compared to rivals in its class like the Royal Oak Offshore Diver. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for pricing.